Let's get started with two men who need no introduction, but still, we'll give them one. Jérôme and Stéphane.
Hi everyone, I am Jérôme, the Senior Product Manager on Dead by Daylight. I am in charge of the roadmap, so basically defining the features to be implemented in the game.
Hi everyone, happy to be here today. I'm Stéphane Beauchamp, I'm producer on Dead by Daylight, and my job is to execute along with the team the roadmap Jérôme is putting together.
All right, game health is always a subject that keeps coming back. Last year we had a big discussion about it. I think that regularly we talk about game health. It's something that's going to be at the top of our concern for a long time. Let's dig a little bit more into what it means specifically, at least for the next year for us. Let's start with dedicated servers, which was a big improvement this year. Stéphane, you want to talk about it?
Absolutely. The transition to dedicated servers has been a really challenging experience, but also very exciting one. We're happy to be behind that transition and migration, but there's a lot of ways in which we would like to continue improving gameplay experience on dedicated servers. This is going to happen through 3 specific features that will integrate over the next year or so. The first one is we're planning on increasing the rate at which our server runs, which is going to have a positive impact on the latency between the player doing an action or doing an input on the client, and that actually having an effect on the server. That being said, even by reducing this as much as we can, the network limitations always force a minimum amount of latency. Because of that, there's always moments where what you see on your client isn't exactly the same as what's actually happening on the server. So we're adding movement extrapolation to various characters to make sure what you see is as close as we can from what's actually happening on the server. But as I mentioned, there's always going to be these things that happen. And in order to prevent that from having a negative impact on the gameplay, we're looking into adding a validation on server and client side of things to make sure any gameplay critical action, whether it is using an interaction, doing an interrupt, doing an attack, landing a hit properly, etc., these are all going to get validated on both sides to make sure no one's actually getting cheated out or into a hit that shouldn't have landed. Probably one of the most frustrating experiences for anyone to have. And these are the main 3 changes we're planning to put up, which are going to improve the gameplay experience.
Awesome. The next thing I want to talk about, which is, it's a subject that we've talked about since day one on Dead by Daylight, matchmaking. It's always going to be a intense subject of conversation. There are more improvements coming this year. Jérôme, do you want to talk about the specifics a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So currently the system is using ranks to matchmake players, but the ranking system is more a time-based progression system. It resets every month. So instead, we are going to use an algorithm, and this algorithm is looking only at what happened during the trial and what was the outcome of the trial. So this will help us to define player skill level, and this will help us to create a better and fairer matchmaking system. So this algorithm was already implemented in the background of the live servers, and this since several months. So it was not used for matchmaking, but just for simulations. And now we have some results, and they look good. So now we just need to polish the last details, and we'll be ready for a release this upcoming month, so this summer.
Cool. One of the things also that we like working on, all of these things are really cool, but live design is something, it's such a crazy game with an ever-changing meta. Live design is always something that's going to create a lot of talk in the community. When we redid Freddy, for instance, or the Doctor, all these things. We have a few more of these live design changes planned. Obviously, it's an ongoing effort, but maybe you can talk about a few of them, Stéphane?
Over the past 4 years, we've put out so much content into this game, and we keep on adding more and more as every chapter releases. We just really want to make sure that everything that exists in the game right now is up to par with the new content we're continuously releasing. And how we plan on doing that is exactly like we did before, revisiting older characters, revisiting existing perks and add-ons to make sure they're still balanced, they're still interesting to play with, they're still competitive, they're fun. So really, exactly like we've shown in the past with a few specific major reworks or just updates we're putting out every update. Obviously, the maps shouldn't necessarily be left to the side for that. We've seen recently with our one of our most recent updates how the fan base reacted super positively to a major update we put out, revisiting a bunch of older maps to make sure the navigation, the palette placement, the vaulting placement, etc. Were as balanced as they can be, were as fun to play with. So we're continuously looking into improving our existing maps while we're still putting out a bunch of new ones too. Finally, the third thing we're going to look into over the next year is something that's quite similar to what we did last year when we introduced the endgame collapse, but is going to apply to the beginning of the game instead. This has been a topic that's continuously discussed in the community, and we also feel a lot strongly about. The beginning of the game is a moment where there are a lot of potential things to do for killers and survivors. It can be a stressful moment for some of these, for some of the roles. So we're really looking at cleaning up and making that start game experience as fun as possible for everyone involved in the game. So stay posted for more details about that one in particular.
Thank you very much. One of the things also to note is the game is, after so many years, we're now on pretty much every platform out there, almost. We just released our mobile on iOS and Android, obviously. We're now on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, a few PC platforms. That brings up a lot of questions about what are we going to do to make sure that players can play together, whatever platform they're playing on. I think that's a big question. It brings question of crossplay, cross-friends, cross-progression. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Cross-friends is one of our most asked for and requested feature, and we're really happy to say it's finally coming to the game this year. How this is going to work is we're adding a search feature and add friends features into the existing friends list that's already available on multiple SKUs, on all SKUs. So you're going to be able to search for friends from other games and just add them directly to your friends list. And from there, you'll be able to form survivor friends or custom game parties and play with a bunch of people from a different platform directly into a public or a private game. On top of that, we're also adding crossplay. It comes with it necessarily, but crossplay is also going to be part of the base matchmaking experience. And we're hoping that by grouping a bunch of players from different platforms together on the same player pool, we're going to be able to matchmake you with a much bigger player pool and thus matchmake you better against people that are closer within ranks, etc. The other added benefit that we're hoping crossplay is going to bring is that we're going to diversify the meta between different platforms. As we know, people tend to have different habits on the specific platforms, whether it's playing a certain role or playing with a certain character. And by mixing these pools together, we're going to expose and break the barriers between players and habits of different platforms, which is really, really exciting to do.
That sounds fun. The question, obviously, that comes in right after that is for Jerome, I guess, is when is that coming in? What's the timeline? How is that going to be put in the roadmap?
We want to make sure that we can provide the best player experience possible for the community. That is why we're going to release the cross-friends and cross-play features in 2 waves. So first, we are going to introduce the cross-friend features on the PC platforms, so Steam and Windows Store, because those platforms have already the crossplay enabled. And then in the second wave, we will be adding in this pool the console platforms, so PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And at this time, all the platforms will be able to play together. So in terms of timeline, we expect to have all these platforms being available in the crossplay and the cross-friend features environment before the end of this year.
Awesome. And what about cross-progression?
Yeah, you're right. We know that the cross-play topics comes along with the cross-progression topics. That's a topic that we have already in our head. We are currently in discussion with the partners, so we can't give much details because it depends a lot on these talks, but that's a feature that we would like to have.
Thank you very much. Next, I want to talk about something that's I find super exciting. I mean, it's all really cool to talk about what's coming this year, and we're always happy to be transparent and tell people, but this one is kind of dear to me. The game has been going on for about 4 years now, and some of the big updates that we've done, especially on the visuals of some of the maps and things like that, really get people excited. And obviously, we've also learned a lot in how to create assets in the last 4 years of working on this. So what's coming in the next year, among other things, is a huge graphic update. And I'd like us to talk a little bit about what we're going to do with that so that Dead by Daylight can continue to not just be relevant and be a game that people keep playing, which we keep saying we want to do, but we want to make sure that Dead by Daylight is a game that can stand proudly next to all these next-gen games that are coming in the next few years.
Yeah, so last year we updated the Larry's Memorial map, and it was pretty great. The feedback from the community was really good, and even you, Mathieu, was asking me how we managed to make this so frightening. So this year we're going to go beyond this. We are going to update all the maps that are in the game, but that's not going to be only that. It's going to be a massive graphical update. We're going to review all the special effects, the animation, and we're going to add more lighting in the game so we can play more with the tension and the creepiness in the trials. We really want to deep dive into the core aspect of Dead by Daylight, which is horror. So now it's 4 years of assets that we need to review. So it's going to be a small task. That is why we're going to do it in different phases throughout the year. The goal, as you mentioned, Mathieu, is to stay true to the nature of Dead by Daylight while also continuing to be the reference in horror gaming for the years to come.
Awesome. I cannot wait. And just to specify this, we actually did put a full team on just that task, making sure that we can, ramp up every single asset that we've had, which there's a lot of stuff in Dead by Daylight since its inception. Now, talking about graphic update is really cool, but everybody wants to see something. Is there anything we can show them at this point? I mean, it's early on, but there must be a little something.
Yeah, we are very excited with what we have done so far. So we have some assets who are still work in progress, but of course we want to share with you what it's looking like.